池袋の豊島が丘ですよ。こんなとこに酸素型林間学校、林間ってエッチですね。熊出没注意。熊が出ます。人物もいるように。
Actually, something like 40% of all of diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, one of the least curable forms of lymphoma, is caused by mutations in MYD88. In particular, there was a mutation of leucine 265 to proline, which was the major mutation that was driving this, and the idea was that this was actually turning on this MYD88 pathway constitutively in the absence of any sort of toll-like receptor activation. So, anyway, so when I saw this, I thought, well, we know quite a lot about this MYD88 signaling network. Surely, based on this, it'll be a double to be able to sort of just find a way to destroy these lymphoma cells. So, Lucid kindly gave us these cells, and so I just had this first-year graduate student join me, Sam Strickson, to do a 4-month rotation project, and I said, Sam, in your project, you're going to become famous because you're going to cure diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. So he sort of enthusiastically went into the lab on day one, and so I said, all we have to do is we've got a whole variety of relatively specific inhibitors of the kinases in the system. I'm sure that if we find the right ones or the right combination of kinases, then we'll have no problem in dealing with this lymphoma. So he started by using quite a potent dual inhibitor of IRAK1 and IRAK4 at a concentration here on the cells 5 micromolar, which we know obliterates the activity of both of those kinases. Those are the kinases just below MYD88. When I say obliterate, I can't lay my hand on my heart and tell you it's more than 95% inhibition, because probably the sensitivity of our blocking isn't that. This is blocking them out at least 95%. Daniel Gray here at Harvard, and another compound that's been known for somewhat longer. And although we got a sort of a small inhibition of proliferation, it really wasn't anything to shout about at all. Cells are still growing and proliferating. So I said, well, let's try the next one down in the pathway. That's the canonical IKK complex. So we have a very potent and specific inhibitor of this, developed by Boehringer Ingelheim, the 605906. Again, no go at all. So I said, well, this compound is specific for IKK beta, we've got IKK alpha to deal with. I said, okay, the TAC1 inhibitor should have dealt with IKK alpha and beta, but maybe something strange in these cells. So, and there's actually only one compound that we could see that was described as would inhibit both of these. It's a compound called DAY11702. So we added DAY11702 and a closely related derivative, and to our delight, these cells were completely destroyed after about a couple of days of treatment. So I thought this is still though pretty strange because this is inhibiting IKK alpha and beta, and then the TAC1 inhibitor should have worked because they also completely block IKK alpha and beta. So okay, so what is this compound? So this is the structure of this compound. It's a rather low molecular mass of 207 Daltons. It was, as you can see from its name, it was a compound developed by Bayer. Actually, it's an anti-inflammatory molecule. It actually was used in rat models of inflammation and edema and arthritis, and was given every day to these mice once a day for several weeks, and had very beneficial effects in reducing inflammation. So what it's been shown is it's an irreversible inhibitor, and it prevented the phosphorylation of IKB alpha, which is one of the classical targets for the canonical IKK complex, and as a result of that, inhibited the activation of NF-kappa B. So this seems to be an IKK inhibitor. In fact, if you look at the literature, you'll see actually there are nearly 400 papers in which it's been used as an IKK inhibitor to implicate NF-kappa B in a great variety of biological processes on the IKK complex. Anyway, I was a bit sort of concerned about what it was doing and what TAC1 inhibitors were not doing, so I said, look, Sam, let's assay this compound against the IKK alpha and IKK beta. So we did, and we found that it doesn't inhibit IKK alpha and IKK beta at all. Not even at 0.1 millimolar. And nor did it inhibit IRAK1 and 4, so I thought this is very strange. So we better study this in more detail. So let's see what happens to the activation of the canonical IKK complex in cells when we add this compound here. So then it started to become clearer. So here we were incubating a cell line that stably expresses the IL-1 receptor with IL-1 beta, which is a classical model for the MYD88 signaling network, and you can see that within a level where it doesn't, the canonical IKK complex is not activated, and nor do you get phosphorylation of its substrate D1 and 5, and you actually block the degradation of IKB alpha, which is dependent on its phosphorylation by the canonical IKK complex. So it wasn't inhibiting IKK alpha beta, but it was blocking its activation. But its activation is catalyzed by TAC1, and TAC1 inhibitors have not mimicked the effect of this compound on the cell line. So, and it also, as I just showed you in the last slide, it doesn't inhibit IRAK1 or IRAK4. So what the hell was it doing? So I thought, well, maybe it's working very near to MYD88. Somehow maybe it's not inhibiting IRAK1 and 4, but maybe it's blocking the activation of IRAK1 and 4 in some way. So we looked into this. You can look at this because you can measure the IL-1, or in this case the LPS-stimulated autophosphorylation of IRAK4, and it turns out that this wasn't affected at all by this Bayer compound. So actually isn't blocking the activation of IRAC1 and 4 at all. So what on earth could it be doing? Well, there only seems to be one thing left. It wasn't detecting anything here, and it wasn't detecting anything down here. So maybe the AY11702 was doing something to block the formation of either the Li63 linked or the linear polyubiquitin chains, and inhibiting some components of the ubiquitin machinery. So, okay, Sam, let's look at the formation of Li63 linked polyubiquitin chains and see what this does. So finally we extract gold. So here you see this unstimulated cells, there's no formation of these Li63 linked polyubiquitin chains being detected with a specific antibody. And if you stimulate with IL-1, you trigger Li63 polyubiquitin chain formation. But if you add this compound prior to stimulating with IL-1, it completely stops the formation of Li63 linked polyubiquitin chains, which is presumably why it's blocking the activation of the canonical IKK complex and the phosphorylation of its substrates. Okay, so this let me remind you how these Li63 linked polyubiquitin chains are formed. Of course, like all ubiquitination reactions, you need an E1, and the ubiquitin initially gets transferred to a cysteine residue on the E1, and then that's transferred to the active cysteine on the E2, which in this case is UBC13, and then in the presence of an E3, like in this case like TRAS6 or the Polinos, the E3 catalyzes the transfer of ubiquitin from the E2 to in this case, another ubiquitin to form a Li63 linkage. So in principle, this compound could have affected the E1, the E2, or the E2, basically, or possibly the E3. So, so we look into this, and so here we're looking at the loading of ubiquitin to an E1, and you can see that actually this compound didn't affect the loading of ubiquitin to E1, but when we looked at UBC13 and got to around 4 micromolar of the compound, the loading of ubiquitin started to go, and then it was completely gone 8 micromolar or above. So, this is an irreversible inhibitor, so it seemed it might be binding covalently to the E2, and perhaps to the, a reaction with the cysteine residue at the, that conjugates, that accepts the ubiquitin. So we actually did some mass spectrometry, and we saw that, so here is the sizes of the whole protein UBC13, and then when we react with the AY11702, the molecular mass increases. But to our surprise, I already showed you this compound has a molecular mass of 207, but the mass only increased by 51. So what on earth was going on? So anyway, so Sam went into all the chemistry of this, and it's turned out to be sort of actually quite simple, that the reactive SH group on UBC13 by a Michael addition at this disulfide bond is forming a covalent adduct, and then the drug gets cleaved. So that just a bit of the drug gets 51 kilodaltons gets attached to UBC13, and you eliminate the rest of the drug is forming sulfinic acid. So this is how it was sort of irreversibly inactivating the C2. I'm going to go into the chemistry in much more detail, using N-acetylcysteine as a sort of a model reaction of purifying components and working out the structures by NMR, which was done by our chemist at the time, Shapiro. So this is, well, if it's doing this to UBC13, why should it just restrict this to UBC13? Maybe it's doing this on other E2. So if that's the case, then it could also be affecting the formation of linear polyubiquitin chains by Lubac. So just to remind you here that obviously the ubiquitin loaded E1, in this case, UBCH7 is thought to be the E2 that works with Lubac physiologically. That's not completely certain, but so you get ubiquitin attached to UBCH7, and then actually Lubac is a sort of a RDR type E3 ligase, so it's a bit like a HEFT E3 ligase, so it actually itself accepts ubiquitin. So you have the ubiquitin from the E2 is first transferred to a cysteine residue on the catalytic components of Lubac, which is called COIL, and then it's transferred, to the substrate, which in this case would be another ubiquitin chain to form a linear polyubiquitin chain. So we thought, well, does this compound also affect UBCH7? And the answer was yes, it was actually even more sensitive than UBC13. It was completely gone at 4 micromolar. And then of course it's possible that it could also react with Lubac. So we immunoprecipitated Lubac from the extracts after incubating with and without the drug to see if it, would actually inactivate Lubac. And the answer was yes, it did. So this is IPing the endogenous Lubac from cells and looking at its ability to form linear polyubiquitin chains to function at time. And you can see when you get up to, again, the usual sorts of concentrations that the Lubac is inactivated, and we've sort of isolated the relevant tryptic peptides, and it's actually attached to the active site cysteine that we would expect. Okay, so what this was really saying is that the way this drug is actually blocking the MyD88 signaling pathway is by blocking one or probably more than one of the E2s as well as Lubac to block this reaction. So this pathway is not the only pathway in which Li63 linked polyubiquitin chains are involved. So if this compound is inhibiting E2s like UBC13, it actually should block all Li63 polyubiquitin dependent processes. So for example, one of those would be the cellular response to DNA damage. Of this drug, you actually do see its recruitment of DNA process. So probably what is happening here is that this drug is actually, you're getting a certain amount of spontaneous DNA damage going on, and the drug is blocking, the repair of that DNA, and that's what's leading to this recruitment. So these drugs are clearly not necessarily exerting their effects by inhibiting the canonical IKK complex and the MyD88 pathway at all. They could be doing this by blocking any Li63 linked or linear polyubiquitin dependent process. Okay, so just after we sort had done all this, a paper then appeared in Blood, in the journal Blood, claiming that they had developed a specific inhibitor of UBC13. And when we looked at this compound, NSC697923, it looked remarkably similar to BAY11782. So we thought, well, we better put this compound through its paces. Is it really doing the same as BAY11782? So to get long story short, the answer was yes, exactly the same thing happens. This time the sustained residue of UBC13, there's a Michael addition here, and the drug again cleaves, and you get the elimination of 4-methylbenzene sulfinic acid, and so you increase the molecular weight of UBC13, not by the weight of the drug, but by 95 kilodaltons, because part of the drug is attached. So I thought, surely it's not a specific inhibitor of UBC13. So we took Ubiquigent's E2 profiling panel. So we looked at the effect of both of these drugs on their ability to inactivate every E2 conjugating enzyme, which conjugates ubiquitin. And it turned out that BAY11782 actually inactivates 24 of the 26 E2s in this panel. NSC697993 is not specific for UBC13, but actually it's more specific than BAY11782. It actually inhibits 9 of the 26 E2s. So you can see there are sort of minus and plus the drug. So it's sort of here's UBC13 with its other name UBE2N, and you can see that the conjugation of ubiquitin is gone, but there are various other E2s that are resistant to this. So it is actually a more specific derivative, and actually suggests that if you played around with this type of compound, you actually might be able to get rather specific inhibitors of E2s, which is quite interesting. So okay, so just to finish, we thought, well, we started, it's inhibiting all of these E2s, it's blocking lyse63 link polyubiquitination, and it's also blocking linear polyubiquitination. What about lyse48 link polyubiquitination? So if BAY11782 is inhibiting 24 of the 26 E2s, surely we'll wipe out lyse48 link polyubiquitination, which is of course important for targeting proteins to the proteasome for degradation. So, sorry, I'll put these the wrong way around. So anyway, but what I sort of show you here is exactly the opposite happened. So much to our astonishment, the BAY11782 in a variety of cells actually, it's just lyse48 link polyubiquitination without the drug, and then with the drug, it enormously increases lyse48 link polyubiquitination. Actually, in fact, even more in some cells than you get with a proteasome inhibitor. So this clearly shows it can't be wiping out every E2 conjugating enzyme, otherwise you wouldn't get any lyse48 link polyubiquitination. So clearly, one or more E2s is allowing lyse48 link polyubiquitination. Maybe there's actually a further effect here of BAY11782 in inhibiting the proteasome. So of course, very well known in this area is the fact that proteasome inhibitors like bortezomib are sort of very effective for the treatment of multiple myeloma. So what do they do to these diffuse large B-cell lymphoma cells, and how does it compare with BAY11782? So basically, as you can see, bortezomib at 100 nanomolar, that's more or less what BAY11782 does at 3 micromolar. So where does this all leave us? Let me just give you a summary slide. So first of all, our data suggests that specific inhibition of the kinases that participate in the MyD88 signaling network may not be effective for the treatments of DLBCL. At least 95% inhibition is no good. If you get 100% inhibition, maybe it would do something, but at least 95% inhibition is no good. This BAY11782, used in more than nearly 400 papers as an IKK inhibitor, actually doesn't inhibit the IKKs. It's actually an inhibitor of the ubiquitin system. And this compound and the related NSC697893 may destroy these lymphoma cells carrying the MyD88 L265P mutation by preventing the formation of lyse63 and linear polyubiquitin chains and inactivating the processes they regulate. But they are not necessarily processes like involving the MyD88 network. They may be other processes involved like the DNA damage response. This compound, however, may also be destroying these cells by some inhibition of the proteasome as well. Nevertheless, the anti-inflammatory effects of BAY11782 described many years ago are likely to be due to the inhibition of the MyD88 signaling pathway. It's actually quite remarkable to me that this compound was given daily to mice in mouse models of inflammation for over a month with very beneficial effects, and despite all of these sort of drastic effects that it has on cells. But of course, even the proteasome inhibitor was an unlikely target for the treatment of multiple myeloma. Okay, so that's all I've got to tell you about today. This is just a picture of our building where we're located on the top 3 floors of the complex, and all of the work was done by the first year graduate student, but also to thank Lou Stout for the cells and for our mass spectrometry and protein production teams who helped us, Natalia Shapiro, our chemist, and advice from other chemists that have helped with our studies on the DNA damaging effects from Christopher Shaw in John Rouse's lab, and Nathaniel Gray for the TAC1 inhibitor we used. Thanks very much for listening to me.
Appreciate everyone joining us, and welcome to today's XTalks webinar. Today's talk is entitled Analysis of Immune Checkpoint Control Protein Co-expression in Breast and Ovarian Cancer using Novel Rapid Monoclonal Antibodies and Multiplex IHC. My name is Vicky, and I will be your XTalks host for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. This presentation includes a Q&A session with our speaker. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved, so please feel free to submit questions and comments for our speaker throughout the presentation using the questions chat box, and we will try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. This chat box is located on the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and if you do require any assistance, please feel free to contact us at any time by sending a message using the chat panel. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Please note that this event will be recorded and made available for future download. At this point, I would like to thank Cell Signaling Technology, who helped develop the content for this presentation. Cell Signaling Technology is a private, family-owned company founded by scientists and dedicated to providing high-quality research tools to the biomedical research community. Their 400 employees operate worldwide from their headquarters in Danvers, Massachusetts, and their offices in the Netherlands, China, and Japan. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker for today's event, Matthew R. Silver. Matthew leads the Translational Assays Group at Cell Signaling Technology, where he focuses on the development of both translational research regions and multiplex assays. Matthew received a PhD in biochemistry from the University of New Hampshire, where he studied the neuroendocrine regulation of reproduction. His subsequent postdoctoral studies were performed at Live Research within the Department of Information. And now, without further ado, I'd like to hand the mic over to Matt. You may begin when ready.
Thank you very much, Vicky, and hello, everyone. Again, my name is Matt Silver, and today my presentation is going to focus on the use of multiplex genetic chemistry to analyze the co-expression of immune checkpoint control protein. Starting with a quick overview of my presentation, I'm going to begin with an overview of multiplex IgG and how we're doing multiplex IgG here at CSC. I'm going to give you an update on our the IgG antibodies that are relative to immunotherapy. Then I'll finish with an example of panel development that we're working on here at Megan. So starting with multiplex IgG, I think the rationale for multiplex IgG is fairly straightforward. It comes down to the fact that there are a lot of biomarkers and a limited amount of biopsies here. And so the benefits for multiplexing are pretty straightforward. It is very useful to acquire multiple pieces of information, perception, looking at multiple targets, perception, or per cell. This is particularly helpful when these examples are rare, which they typically are, or small, such as the case as a finding aspirin. I think it's important to keep in mind that tissue contact is partially maintained. While it's not as good as you get with a tried-and-true chromogenic IgG stain, it's certainly a lot better than what you'll have in a assay multiplex assay infection sequencing or PCR. And so physical contact with the tissue microenvironment can be a really important component of the assay and a really important feature to multiplexing. Of course, there's a number of challenges of multiplexing, including fluorochrome spectral overlap, which we want to which is multiplex. Tissue autofluorescence can be a real challenge here.
Wind.
We're only limited by discrete relation to multiplex. However, when working in tissue sensitivity loss, again, when working with conjugates tends to become problematic. This is an example here, looking at staining that's performed with our rabbit and VEGFR antibody was secondary compared to conjugated products instead of T-cell line based works. Here, this is a illustration side by side of conjugates compared to a primary secondary based approach compared to serum. And so, in the context of a conjugated antibody, you get a signal that you are able to measure because your antibody is conjugated to fluorochrome 3 or 4 for antibodies for serum. So, you have a certain degree of amplification to these secondary antibodies now. If your secondary antibody is conjugated, now you get multiple secondary antibodies for primary antibodies to get the strongest signal. Serum, on the other hand, is a catalyzed reporter deposition assay that takes advantage of an enzymatic reaction to deposit large numbers of fluorochrome around your actual epitope. And so, serum by itself is a small molecule that conjugates to a number of different things, captain or fluorochrome. And then the reaction here is catalyzed by HRT to lead to a highly reactive free radical form of ceramide that forms covalent bonds with electron-rich regions. Those proximity reactions itself, which typically would be a tyrosine residue. And end up coating the epitope in your antibody with fluorochrome. So this enables a very, very strong signal. As an example of what that implication looks like in this slide, from data from our ALK antibody, OD5F3, staining positive cells, H0-1C2, express the ML4L translocation, T47T cells are negative. The standard staining approach imaging is opposite. The H0-1C2 cells are stained red, while T47T cells are not. And down below is what we see using PSA-based protocol, where you see a much stronger stain in H0-1C2 cells, while the T47T cells are still negative. The actual numbers here are shown as MFI per cell, which is intensity per cell, are shown. H0-1C2 cells in red and T47T in blue. And so you can see the numbers here for the standard approach and a strong increase in signal intensity you get when you go over to the CSA-based approach. A very minimal increase in signal comes from T47T cells. It's also important to note that the bottom